Hi, everybody. Al Bernstein here with another one of my quick hits videos. This one, again, we will look back at the year 2017, a year that I've pointed out I think is a great year for the sport of boxing. And on this quick hits, we're going to look back at four fighters who I think are breakout stars in the sport of boxing, either are on the verge of being or already are. And we're going to take a look at their past and spin ahead to their future, as well as they're part of the reason why 2017 was so special for the sport of boxing. The first man we'll talk about is Errol Spence Jr., the Dallas native who was a U.S. Olympian and found his true calling, I think, as a professional. And though he fought only once in 2017, which is an issue that he's going to have to address moving forward, it was such a big and important win that it really vaulted him in the sport of boxing. It was by far the toughest opponent he's ever fought when he took on Kell Brook to try and win a version of the welterweight title. He traveled across the pond in front of more than 30,000 hostile fans rooting for Brook. Errol Spence was able to get the job done. And there were several things about what Errol Spence did that were so impressive to me. Number one, he fought a Kell Brook who was highly motivated to retain his title. A Kell Brook who fought so well over the first 6 rounds that the fight was nip and tuck, very interesting, very exciting. But Errol Spence was able to take control of the fight and stop Kell Brook and really demonstrate what a powerful fighter he is, which we already knew, tremendous body puncher, one of the best in the sport of boxing, but showed something else in that fight that I think was a little more remarkable. My reservations about Errol Spence have always been defense. When he fought an upper echelon fighter, which he hadn't really done till the Brook fight, how would his defense hold up? It appears from his attacking style, he can be hit more than maybe he should. Now, we're seeing nuances in the way Errol Spence fights that show us that his defense is also excellent. And as he continues to fight world-class fighters and really good fighters, I don't think that defense is going to let him down, even though he's fighting this aggressive attacking style. The next fighter we're going to talk about is a young man who moved up from 140 pounds and is a fighter who may well fight Errol Spence someday. His name is Terence Crawford. Terence Crawford already thought of as one of the top 1 or 2 or 3 pound-for-pound fighters in the world today. The pride of Omaha, much like Errol Spence, he has even more so than Spence, a loyal fan base in Omaha that has rooted him on, come to see his fights. And Terence Crawford this past year made history by unifying the 140-pound title and did it in very impressive fashion. Terence Crawford is now at 147 pounds, and he is looking to fight Jeff Horn for a version of the welterweight title, which is one of the things that puts him in theory on what potentially somewhere along the line could be a collision course with Errol Spence. Now, Errol Spence, by the way, in the year 2018, people believe he's likely to fight Keith Thurman, which is a tremendous fight. And Keith Thurman, one of the stars of boxing, to be sure, undefeated. That fight is one that could create a mega fight in the sport of boxing. But if Errol Spence would win that fight, can you imagine he and Terence Crawford battling it out in the year 2019? If they don't get to each other in 2018, it would be fairly extraordinary. Crawford is one of the great ring mechanics in the sport of boxing today. He is somebody who can fight righty, fight lefty. He is a superb fighter. There's absolutely no one doubts his technical proficiency. And as he continues at 147, where I think it will be a comfortable weight for him, we're going to see just how good Terence Crawford can be. He wants to win that title against Horn and then look to other bigger things. But he hopes to be very active and fight at least 3 times in 2018. Another fighter who we are expecting big things from in 2018, Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia was out of boxing for a couple of years, as many of you know, because of his issues with his former promotional company, Top Rank Boxing. He broke away from them, and there were legal battles, and Garcia was out of the sport for a couple of years, came back with a vengeance, won the lightweight title against Dejan Zlaticanin, destroying him, and then went up to 140 and fought an extraordinary fight in beating Adrian Broner, and showed us in those fights that this is a different Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia before was a very excellent fighter who was a counter-punching power puncher, who would often win fights, often by knockout, but still wasn't as fan-friendly, some thought, in his style, because he threw smaller numbers of punches and sometimes wouldn't press the advantage, waiting for the other fighter to put himself in perfect position to be countered. Not so anymore. Mikey Garcia in his last several fights has made himself into a more volume-punching, fan-friendly fighter, and I think that was a conscious decision on his part, in a sense, a marketing decision, to make sure that he can be thought of as one of the most popular fighters in boxing. And that's on his mind. He's very keen on that. Now, this leads us to somebody who might fight Mikey Garcia down the road, and that is Vasyl Lomachenko, who is thought of by many people right now as the best pound-for-pound fighter in the world today, the mythical pound-for-pound fighter title, but he is a spectacular fighter, obviously. Perhaps the best amateur in the history of boxing. And as a professional, in just a short time, has provided already an amazing resume. And this past year, he was active, fighting 3 times, winning all 3 of those fights in which his opponents basically stopped fighting. They retired. And in fact, in his last 4 fights, including a fight against Nicholas Walters, who was thought by many, remember, to be kind of a monster in these smaller weight divisions, he made Walters quit. So that's extraordinary unto itself. In his last fight against Guillermo Rigondeaux, a fight that was a flashpoint for many in the debate about Lomachenko, if you will, some denigrated the victory because Rigondeaux, who himself, of course, was a brilliant amateur and has won as a title as a pro, was coming up 2 weight classes to take on Lomachenko. It was a fight I thought several months before the fight probably wasn't the right fight for either man because of the weight difference, but Rigondeaux convinced the promoters and everybody else he could compete. Well, he couldn't. Lomachenko really dominated the fight, and Rigondeaux retired due to a hand injury, which turned out to be not a break, but some kind of bruise, which is another story. But in any case, Lomachenko still won that fight, was impressive in doing it. And the fascinating thing about the way he makes these fighters quit and not fight is that he does it not with sheer power, though he punches with authority. He exasperates and frustrates them to the point where they literally believe they have no chance to win. And they're taking a lot of punches. So it's pretty extraordinary. Now, Lomachenko and Mikey Garcia. Just hearing myself say that sounds really exciting for me and for all boxing fans. At 135 pounds, where Lomachenko could get to, he's at 130 pounds right now, that would be a very interesting and entertaining and fascinating matchup. In fact, to be honest, if you asked me to create a dream fight for myself in the sport of boxing, that's the one. That's the one fight that I would say I'm most interested in seeing. There are barriers to that fight. As I mentioned, Garcia had a acrimonious breakup with Bob Arum and the Top Rank Boxing folks, and there is a chasm between them. Lomachenko is the pride and joy of Top Rank right now, along with Terence Crawford, and so Arum and his people are very, very feel very positive about Lomachenko and where he is at in the sport of boxing. It's going to be a difficult make to create that fight because they're both at different promotional companies, both at different networks fighting. But I think that the sheer excitement that fight could cause and how appealing it is to everybody makes it almost doable. You know, I think at some point, maybe not in 2018, because I think Garcia is likely to fight. He's going to fight Sergey Lipinets in February to win a 140-pound title, and then we'll move up, or then we'll fight Jorge Linares probably at either 135 pounds, or possibly Linares will move up at 140. So his dance card may be mostly full. Lomachenko's making his plans. But that fight could happen in 2019. And if it did, it would be extraordinary for the sport of boxing. And one of the reasons I hold out hope for it is because boxing has been making better fights. It has been doing better in terms of making fights that fans want to see. Did a much better job this year. And so it's already continuing in the fights we see on the board for 2018. So I do hold out hope for that. My final comment on this quick hits has to do with Lomachenko, because there's been much talk about Vasyl Lomachenko as an all-time great already in the sport of boxing. Now, he is probably already acknowledged as the best amateur fighter, maybe of all time, which is an extraordinary achievement. As a professional, though, I believe to discuss him right now as one of the all-time greats as a professional is premature. He is a fantastic fighter and has the potential to be thought of in that way. And in a short period of time has built up an amazing resume. He beat Gary Russell, in less than his first half dozen fights, who was already had already been a champ or a top fighter. And Gary Russell Jr. is a terrific fighter, and I think Lomachenko demonstrated he's simply better. And that was extraordinary, making Walters quit again, defeating these other fighters that he has. Lomachenko's already demonstrated he's a terrific fighter, but it is premature to think of him as an all-time great. He doesn't have the resume yet to talk about him in that respect. However, that's not to say that he won't in the future. And one of the things that could drive that discussion would be if he's able to move up to 135 and get some important fights. Clearly, the one that would be most important is him and Mikey Garcia. So these fighters, along with a number of other stars heading into 2018, I think will help make the sport grow itself again from where it was in 2017, where it had a banner year. And we'll look forward to seeing how all these fighters fare in the coming year. We'll see you next time on Quick Hits.